Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Today we are doing my end of year wrap up at the beginning of January, but it means we have exact full stats for December, or all the way through to December for 2025. So let's talk about the books I read in 2025. I've written down everything for myself. So I have kept a few of the same questions from last year's video. There's a few I've taken out and there's a couple I've added. So it's a little bit different. Let's talk about my stats first of all, actually. So we have my trusty reading journal, and at the very end of the book, I have kept all my reading stats. So I had to do some maths yesterday when I was figuring this out. So the total number of pages I read in 2025 was 47,768, which is a lot. My ratings were, there were 7 unrated, 1 1-star, 2 6-stars, 28 3-stars, 65 4-stars, and 10 5-stars. So we had a lot of 4-star reads. We had a lot of books that I did really like last year. But not enough 5 stars for my liking. Anyway, of the books I read, 61 were paperback, 26 were hardback, 27 were on KU, and 3 were ebook. And I've counted that as basically it wasn't on Kindle Unlimited. I've either had to download like the iBook store book or whatever. It's basically just miscellaneous. And then I read 5 classics, 47 romances, 39 fantasy, 11 dark romance, 3 fiction, 2 non-fiction / memoir. 1 I rated terrible. I haven't given it a genre. I didn't feel like I could give it a genre because it wasn't a romance, it was disgusting, and yes, it was Queen's. 4 dark fantasy, 1 historical, 1 dark academia, 1 mythology, and 2 mafia romance. Normally I would put mafia romance under dark romance, but they didn't feel very dark. And I'm talking about the Kingmakers series, book 1 and 2, The Heir and The Rebel. They didn't really feel like dark romance, but they were like mafia adjacent, so that's what we did for that. So that's my stats. So I also had various goals, and I did keep a track of my physical TBR and the books I hold. So of my 25 in 2025, I did read 20 of them. So the only ones I didn't read were The Night Circus, Yellowface, Belladonna, When the Moon Hatched, and Butter. I am currently reading The Night Circus though, so we're a little bit late, but we got there. But I did read The 7-Year Slip, Addicted to You, Onyx Storm, This Is How You Lose the Time War, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, Bonded by Thorns, Little Women, Indigo Ridge, Mile High, The Heir, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, The Chase, The Rainfall Market, The Book of Azrael, Electra, The Crimson Moth, Fearless, Quicksilver, Pride and Prejudice, and Great Big Beautiful Life. So I did read a good few. A lot of them were blue. It's a very blue section here, but I digress. So I had 4 goals for the year of 2025. One was to read 100 books, which I completed as of the 2nd of November. Read a memoir, which I did. I read Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zona. I read 5 classics, which is what I wanted to do. So Little Women, Carmilla, Dracula, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Pride and Prejudice. And I wanted to read 2 books on KU a month at least, and I did do that for every single month last year. So I did reach all my goals. The only thing I didn't do was the 25 in 2025. So I am actually really happy with that. What I'm not super happy with is the physical TBR. As you can see, there's not many boxes coloured in there, is there? So from books I own from 2023 or before, I only read 16 and I unhauled 7. And that was out of 89. And then books I bought in 2024. Out of 84 books, I read 24 of them and unhauled 3. So, not the best. And then of the books I have hauled that were new. So, I did colour in blue if I had already read it and I bought the book after reading it, like say on Kindle. Or if it was like a duplicate book, like a special edition or something. So I bought 109 new books last year. Of them I read 47, so at least I was reading more of what I bought than what I already had. But yeah, still wasn't really keeping up with numbers. Because I read 117 books this year. Buying 109, not ideal. Not ideal. So yes, those are the stats. Like I say, I read 117 books in total in 2025. I think that's a pretty good goal. Slightly less than I read the year before, but I did want to do more with my time than just read this year. So yeah, let's get into the questions. Okay, the first question is a book that was the most disappointing. And for that, I'm picking Fearful by Lauren Roberts, because the powerful novella was really good and I was expecting that level of novella from this one, and it wasn't. I just thought it was a waste of time. It didn't need to be written. We didn't need this. It ended fine as it was as a series. So this definitely was the most disappointing read of the year. Book that you think was overhyped. I don't own this one, but Credence, a lot of people love that book and I do think it's overhyped. I don't think, listen, I have read other Penelope Douglas books and liked them. I liked Birthday Girl and I liked Punk 57, but Credence, the writing, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like, oh my god, this writing's so good that I made up for the story. The story I hated, the character, I hated every single one of the characters. I think it's overhyped, and I do think it was a bit gross because he's acknowledging the fact that they are related, and she was 17 when he kisses her for the first time, and when they finally have sex when she is 18, I say finally, it didn't take that long, she was literally calling him her uncle during it. And I was really viscerally uncomfortable by that. But I had to keep reading to know what happened because I hated it, and I was just like, please, surely this has to have a good ending. And then the ending I hated. Who she ends up with is the worst out of all three. I would have rather she ended, you know, I'm just not even gonna, I hate it. And I do think it's overhyped. Book that surprised you. So I have two different answers for this for two different reasons. If we're saying surprised me because I'm surprised I enjoyed it as much as I did, then I would say Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zorner. This is a memoir about I think she's the lead singer-songwriter of a band called Japanese Breakfast, and it's all about her, so she's Korean American, and it's about her relationship with the Korean side of her heritage as someone who grew up in America and lives in America, and sort of struggling with that after the loss of her mother. So it was I'm not normally one who likes non-fiction, and I find the writing of memoirs to be very different to the writing of fiction, like in a way that I don't find maybe as enjoyable. That being said, the writing of this book was absolutely stunning. It was so easy to get into. The way she wrote it was just, it makes sense she's a songwriter because everything felt very purposeful, and the description of imagery was really vivid without being overly flowery and unnecessary, like just sort of to pad it out. It was just really beautifully written, and I was really interested in everything that was happening, and I really felt for her. There was a lot of grief and a lot of emotion in her writing, and I really enjoyed it. So I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it, because generally non-fiction and memoirs isn't something that I enjoy reading. I might find something interesting and be glad I read it, but I might not necessarily enjoy the process of reading it, whereas I really enjoyed the process of reading this book. However, if we're talking about books that surprised me because of the content / ending, then we're gonna have to go for Metal Slinger, because what was that ending? I was so shocked. I didn't even know what to do with myself, and I'm still confused about my feelings about the ending, because it really came out of nowhere, to the point where I'm like, okay, is this realistic? Is something, am I missing something? What? So I am very intrigued by the next book. I have pre-ordered it so I can read it straight away, because I need to know what happens. I need this to be justified. And I really, really hope that this second book explains a lot, but in a way that makes me actually still like the character and think, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. I'm really glad that she's done it this way, like this works so well. That's all I want from this next book. So we'll see. Okay, favourite couple. I have two, and one of these I might have said for last year's, but I did reread the books this year. Zayden and Violet. Okay, they will always be one of my favourite couples. Okay, I absolutely love them. Obviously I reread Fourth Wing and Iron Flame in January last year, and then Onyx Storm came out, and I still absolutely love them. But we do have a new favourite couple, and that is Isaiah and Kennedy from Play Along. Is it Play Along? It is, it's the purple one. I read the Windy City series this year and I absolutely loved all the couples, but something about Isaiah and Kennedy, he was so down bad and I absolutely adored him. He was the funny guy, but he knew what he wanted. He liked Kennedy and he was just waiting for her to be available, and as soon as she was, he was like, right, I'm going for this. Like, I will make her my wife, whether she likes it or not, kind of thing. And Kennedy was absolutely like not having his shit, but at the same time, she was so like endeared by him. Like, I don't know, I just absolutely love those two. Okay, favourite main characters. I have 3. My favourite female main character, maybe of all time, is Selena Sardothian from Throne of Glass. I read the whole series earlier this year. I think it was over April and May, I think. Was it just over 2 months? Maybe it was over 3, I can't remember. And I really enjoyed the Throne of Glass series. I think as a whole, I didn't enjoy it as much as A Court of Thorns and Roses, but I absolutely adored Selena. And comparing her to like Feyre, I think Selena is higher up in my regard, because Feyre goes through a lot, do not get me wrong, and I love Feyre as a main character. But Selena, I can't even put into words. She goes through so much, so much, and I've never felt so much like I was rooting for a character, that I just wanted things to work out for her. Like, I really cared about what was happening to Selena. And I think because I read The Assassin's Blade first, I had a lot of her backstory, and so when I went into Throne of Glass, I already had those emotions and that connection to her that made the whole series easier. So I am read Assassin's Blade first, personally. But read it however you want to read it, really. But yeah, she was just a character that I really just was rooting for the whole series. And it's a long series. And then everything that happens in Kingdom of Ash at like the beginning, no, that was absolutely awful. I'm tearing up thinking about it. I don't think I even cried at the time, but when you like thinking about it now, all this time later, like everything throughout that 8-book series that she goes through is just heartbreaking. And there was moments where characters would be like, yeah, but like they would really just undermine her. And especially towards the end, she was undermined by a certain group of people, and I just think you have no idea how much she has gone through just for you, and you don't even know her and she doesn't even know you, but she's gone through so much and suffered so much for people who don't even know her. And like, I just, yeah, anyway, I have a lot of very strong feelings about Selena, and yeah. Favourite MMCs, we have Lorenzo from Love Arranged, because part of his character really spoke to my soul, and I felt very seen by his character, because he is a character that does suffer with OCD tendencies, and I'm not someone who says I've got OCD. I don't necessarily think I've got OCD like he does. He has diagnosed OCD, but I do have a diagnosed anxiety disorder, and I have OCD tendencies because of that, and which help me mentally manage that, specifically around food and sickness. They are 2 of my biggest triggers, and I don't like that food is a trigger for me because it's not healthy. And I don't mean it's a trigger as in like eating disorder. I don't mean like I don't mean that I restrict how much I eat or eat too much. I don't mean I have like eating disorder type OCD tendencies or anything. I just mean I get very worried about how food is prepared, and I get really upset about it if I don't think something is prepared properly, because I am emetophobic and I'm scared of sickness. So again, worrying about contracting illness from someone, especially if it is like a sickness bug or something like that, I get those OCD thoughts and those OCD tendencies towards that. So his character dealing with very similar things, I felt very seen, and I just really related to him as a character. But also he was just portrayed as this bad guy, and he's actually not. Like, I absolutely love Lorenzo, so he is one of my favourite MMCs this year. And the other one is Leon from Your Salted Take, because I have never read a book where the MMC gives such strong Damon vibes, because the way he said things, I was like, this is literally giving Damon. Like, hang on, I did actually have the book down here. What was one of them that he said? It was email. So she says you're an asshole to him, and he just replies, you are what you eat. And that gave me really strong Damon vibes. Like, I think if Damon would say that, like his character would absolutely say that. Even so, she says please, and he's like, oh please, he pouted, mocking me again. Please what? Use that pretty mouth of yours, come on, speak. Like, again, he's just, the way he mocks her is just very Damon coded. I loved him, even though he's blonde. He's like white blonde though, not like blonde. I don't know. I mean, yeah, anyway, I loved Leon, he was iconic. Okay, favourite new author. So new as in new to me this year. So we have V.E. Schwab. I've read 2 of her books this year, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue and Burial Bones of the Midnight Soil. And Burial Bones was a 4 stars, Addie was 5. It was the first book I read in 2025 and it was a 5 star. I absolutely loved it. I really enjoy V.E. Schwab's writing and I cannot wait to dive into her other series like The Darker Shade of Magic, The Vicious Vengeful. I think the 3rd book's coming out in that actually this year. So I've got a lot of other books that I want to read from her backlog, so I'm excited to get to those at some point. Rachel Gillig, I read the Shepherd King duology this year and also The Night and the Moth. I'm very much looking forward to the next book coming out this year of that. Again, love her writing. She is the queen of a gothic, spooky atmosphere. And then we have Liz Tomford. I read the whole Windy City series this year as well. Absolutely loved those. Ate every single one of them up. I cannot wait for In Her Own League. So excited for that book. And honestly, Holly LaRue. I read the whole Souls trilogy by Holly LaRue and I really want to read The Loser's Duet. Yeah, just loved every book. Really excited to read more from her backlog. The saddest book. Okay, I have 2 for different reasons. The first one, the book itself isn't sad on the whole. It is, it's angsty. But this book made me cry the most out of any book I have read this whole entire year. And that is Fearless. I don't like, this book is the one book that actually made me like quite literally sob while reading it. I could not stop reading. In fact, it was blurry when I was reading it because I was crying so much during that one scene. It broke my heart. This book was very angsty and I don't know what it was, it just really got me. So this was the saddest in terms of making me cry. But the saddest book in terms of subject matter and trauma and just everything was definitely Alchemized by Senlin Yu. This is one of the heaviest books I've ever read and I think I would have gotten more emotional at it had I felt more connected to the characters. Something about me, something could be written so beautifully and have a stellar plot which is just airtight, no plot holes, everything is immaculate. But if I am not connected to the characters, it's not necessarily a good book for me. Like how a character is written in terms of how much you're rooting for them, how much you like them, even how much you hate them. Like just a character making you feel is the most important thing for me enjoying the book personally. That's just how I am. And unfortunately I didn't feel that connection to these characters. But on the whole, the book was really good. So it wasn't a 5 stars and it didn't really hit me emotionally. But I can also admit that this is an incredibly emotional book and it's very heavy and dark. So it is the saddest book that I have read this year. Okay, the prettiest book I have read this year is from the same series as the prettiest book I said from last year. That is Breathe With Me by Becca Mack. This whole series is my favourite for the covers. I just think they are absolutely stunning. The watercolour scenery, I love watercolour as a medium. I think it's beautiful. And yeah, basically, this is beautiful as far as just traditionally published, like original cover. Obviously, I got the Chestnut Springs edition, the Fairy Loot edition to the Chestnut Springs right next to me there. They are gorgeous, they're stunning, but they're not the original covers, whereas this is the original cover, so that's what I'm counting for prettiest book. Okay, book you haven't stopped thinking about all year. This has literally been all year, because as I mentioned, the first book I read this year was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This was a 5 stars, and I have thought about it ever since I read it. I have thought about it basically every day for a year. This book has really stuck with me and I don't even know how to explain why. Yeah, safe to say the last chapter of this book had me absolutely sobbing. It was really good and yeah, it impacted me in a way where I have not been able to stop thinking about Addie and her story. So I don't know if it's obviously getting dark on the camera, but my room is slowly getting darker right now. I'll just make that one brighter and hopefully that'll negate the effects, I don't know. Okay. A book you thought you would love, but you didn't. For that, I'm going to have to say the Addicted series. I've only read the first 3, Addicted, Addicted to You, and Ricochet. That was the wrong order, but anyway. I really thought I was going to love the series just because a lot of the content creators on BookTube and BookTok that I have very similar tastes to absolutely love the series. I enjoyed it, it was fine, I liked the series, but I didn't love the series. And I'm very unsure about going forward. I'd like to read Rose and Connor's books, do not get me wrong. I don't want to read Ryke and Daisy's books because that makes me feel very uncomfortable, and I think the whole Ryke and Daisy of it all is what makes me not like the series as much. That, and just to be completely honest, Lily and Lo are not likeable characters. So yeah. Books you wish you read. I have 3, but realistically I have like the whole of my physical TBR. I had really wanted to get to the Crescent City series last year, but I didn't. At least I managed to read Throne of Glass, which I had wanted to read last year. It's actually the answer to this same question from last year's video. So apparently there'll always be a Sarah J Maas as part of this end of year wrap up video. Yeah, fingers crossed I can get to Crescent City this year. I thought this was like a completed trilogy, and I found out off a TikTok video somewhere, I can't remember who it was, that this is not actually finished. So, but all that matters to me is ACOTAR 6 draft is finished, and that's just, I just need that book in my hands now. So I'm really hoping, I wouldn't mind if she takes a break from Crescent City. I just need her to get back to ACOTAR, okay? Then we have the Lady of Darkness series, and also the Legacy series, I was going to say Legends, Legacy series by Melissa K. Rorich. I have heard nothing but good things about the series, especially the Legacy series. So I'm really hoping I get around to read this year, so then I can read the Legacy series also. And then Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I really wish I had gotten around to reading this year. I was so excited for it coming out. It just never happened. So fingers crossed I can get to this sooner rather than later. There's dust on this. Yeah. Okay. Book you wished you had DNF'd. I have 2 for this. The first one is The Summer I Destroyed You by Elizabeth O'Rourke. I hated this. I just listened to the whole thing on audiobook to get it done. I had read the first 3 in the series, and this one was difficult. The writing was on par with the rest of it. The smut was boring. There was no foreplay. Like, come on. I hated the FMC so much. She just seemed to have a chip on her shoulder and think that gave her the right to treat people terribly and be a bitch. And I don't agree with that in its lightness, so I hate her. I wish I just DNF'd it, to be honest. And Electra by Jennifer Saint. I just struggled to get into this, to be honest. So again, I listened to a lot of it on audio, and then I hated Electra a lot. I hated how this went. I didn't find the writing particularly gripping, so I don't think I really want to continue with any of Jennifer Saint's mythology retellings. But for this meant to be like more of a feminist retelling, and Electra's character being just not feminist in the slightest, I really didn't like it. Okay, favourite series of this year. Again, I have 2. We have the Windy City series by Liz Tomford. I loved this series. This series made me feel so giddy, which is a feeling I hadn't had in so long, where I was just like so excited to be reading and loving every character, loving every book, just not wanting any book to end. This was a really good series. I had 2 5-stars in that series. Every book was a 4.5 or above. Like, this was just, yeah, I cannot recommend this series enough. And then the Souls trilogy by Holly LaRue. Again, I just loved this series. It was so good. It was the perfect spooky vibes for October, which is when I read it. I loved the couples. I love how they are interconnected standalones, but you do have to read them in order because there is an overarching plot that you're following over the 3 books, which is following like overlapping timelines. So you do need to read them in order. Yeah, this was just so good. I absolutely loved them. This one was a 5 stars, and then the other 2 were 4. Absolutely loved them. And then the last thing to talk about is my 2026 reading goals. So this year I'm lowering the goal yet again. We're going for 80 books this year, even though I want to read more than I have this year. But this year there's other things I want to be doing. So I am nearly finished building my own gaming PC, and I would like to maybe start streaming on Twitch this year. Fingers crossed that goes well. So I would obviously be spending time doing that. I do work full time. I work over 4 days, so I have 3 days off a week, so it's not too bad, but yes, I maybe want to be changing things up in terms of my job. I don't know. And then other hobbies and being social, so I didn't want to put loads of pressure on myself this year to read. So I've picked 80 books. I want to read 3 classics this year because I had to kind of rushing all the classics at the end of the year. I don't have to do that this year. And again, I would like to read 2 books on Kindle every month at least to make my Kindle Unlimited subscription worth it. It's also a good way, I find, to try out a series and see if I like it, and if I don't, no harm no foul, don't have to continue, and I've not wasted any money. So I do love my Kindle for that, but also I love my Kindle for like a lot of books I do buy and want to read. If I'm like, I don't want to take it out with me, if I'm like on the bus or anything and want to read, my Kindle's there. So yeah. I'm not doing a 26 in 2026 because that's too many. The 25 in 25 was hard, so I'm just doing 10. I'll tell you which ones they are. I think I've picked like 5 regular romance, and 5 like fantasy / sci-fi. So the 10 books I really want to read in 2026 is Project Hail Mary, House of Earth and Blood, Daughter of No Worlds, Catabasis, Lady of Darkness, The Favourites, One Golden Summer, Inner Jam, God of Malice, and Fever Dream. So of these, only 2 of them I don't own, which is Project Hail Mary and Fever Dream, because not out yet. So we will see. Fingers crossed I do manage that this year. I think my intention for reading this year is going to be less about thinking about content and more about reading what I really want to read at the time, and trying to focus on, if I start a series, just continuing the series in one go, rather than thinking, oh, it doesn't look good if I only read this one series in the month, so I need to read other things. Like, I don't want to think like that. I want to read what I want to read, and I'm really hoping I can get around to some really anticipated series this year and make 2026 my best reading year yet for the amount of enjoyment I've gotten overall out of books. So that being said, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!